Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So my name's Katie and today I'm going to be talking about some books with all the like cozy, found family, sci-fi type vibes, which are books to read if you like Becky Chambers books, because I'm a huge fan of Becky Chambers and her sci-fi books, and I just feel like the world would be a better place if everyone could read them, and just the themes of kind of hope and communication and like recognizing differences in others but how to overcome those differences and like getting along with people who are different from you, and I don't know, just that whole sense of like community. And I think they're really great books. But and over the past year or two I've read some books which have given me similar vibes, so I wanted to share those because it is honestly one of my favourite genres. It's like cozy sci-fi, and a couple of fantasies have snuck their way in here so also that cozy fantasy feeling as well. These are just perfect books to read when you feel like you need a kind of boost and just that kind of sense of like wholesomeness and yeah, when you need to believe in the spirit of humanity again type thing. So the first series I have is A Pale Light in the Black, which is the first one, and the second book, which is Hold Fast Through the Fire, and I really love them both. I gave them both 5 stars, and they kind of both have that sense of like queer found family and space type thing going on, and yeah, just it's the kind of slower paced, although I would say they have, the Pale Light in the Black has more plot than a Becky Chambers book does, but it's the same kind of principle. Like there's a lot of kind of just quieter moments with just like crew bonding and like interpersonal relationships type thing and like personal struggles, and I just feel like it's really, especially set in the backdrop of space, which can be a very isolating type thing, is just so good and so well explored. And oh, I just really love the series. So basically we're following the crew of this, I think it's called the Zuma Ghost is the name of the ship, and they are going to compete in these boarding games which they have every year, where they kind of Neo G, which is like this I think it's said it's inspired by the Coast Guard, so they're sort of this like Coast Guard but in space. This is the kind of navy who is kind of the space navy, so they kind of compete against each other and they have their different teams, and then each space crew individually competes, and so they are competing in these games, and it's kind of almost a bit similar to the Olympics, like not boxing matches, like fighting cages type thing, and like sword fighting, fencing and then there's like piloting competitions and like hacking competitions, and so there's all sorts, and like different crew members do different parts of the games playing to their strengths. So essentially the crew of the Zuma Ghost, they get a new lieutenant called Max Carmichael, and she is from this famous Carmichael family, but she's kind of the black sheep of the family, and she's gone a bit rogue and joined the Neo G because typically all her family are like Navy people, and their family has sort of a monopoly on this substance called RECCS, which is like helps people to live longer in space. And kind of plot of the story comes in where there's this RECCS is there's almost like a counterfeit drug which is being sold in its place, and it's causing really bad side effects and like people are dying from it, and so the crew of the Zuma Ghost kind of stumble upon this plot almost, and then people start trying to kill them to kind of keep it a secret, and at the same time these games are going on, which is kind of really fun, and also nice to see, and I like seeing how Max kind of bonds with the team. And then I really like the other team members. So there's Rosa, who is like the captain, and she has a kind of family back on Earth, so she kind of struggles with that a little bit, like wanting to be with her family, but she's a captain. And then Jenks, who is a member of the crew, and I love Jenks. She's so like feisty, and she reminds me a bit of Kizzy from The Long Way to Small Angry Planet. And then Nika, who's Jenks' brother, but Nika leaves at the start of the book because he is being replaced by Max essentially. But Nika still keeps in contact with them, and his story is kind of is relevant to the overall plot as well. And then in the second one, it was kind of similar, like it's this kind of found family crew again, but then there's another new member of the crew who is like this spy for the bad guys, but they know they know they are a spy. Che doesn't know that they know, so it's a bit confusing. But yeah, and then we're following again Max, Nika and Jenks and their kind of stories, and we get more of Nika in the book. He's kind of becoming a like in charge and how he fits into his role as like a commanding officer. But yeah, it's just the great vibes and I just love it, so would highly recommend. And then after that we have Best of All Possible Worlds by Karen Lord, and I really like this one. So this is kind of a one where it's set in space, but it could very much be set like in our world almost. So there's these refugees, if their planet's kind of been destroyed, and what are they called, Sadri, that they're the people who have kind of been destroyed, and they're kind of now living like as refugees. And yeah, so they travel to this planet where they're kind of being received and looked after, and they then decide that they want to kind of go on a mission to try and find any sort of straggling Sadri around the like universe or the solar system that they can find, to try and recruit them into like forming a new sort of environment, culture, and that they can build back up again. But in order to do this, they team up with a couple of scientists from this new place, and one of whom is called Grace, who is the main character, and I'm pretty sure she narrates it in first person POV. So she is the narrator of the story, and she has to work together with them, and it's just it's kind of a sense of like they're kind of traveling around the world trying to find these peoples, and it's just that kind of thing of like the different cultures and the differences in culture, and like working together to try and find a kind of a common goal, and like doing what's best for the peoples of the worlds. And there's an excellent slow burn relationship in this book. Like I really love it so much. And yeah, just Grace as a character, she's really good, and she has some of her own kind of internal struggles, because on the outside she's very sort of kind of like fun and flirty almost, and then the love interest, he's very like stoic and like this very kind of serious character, but they just work so well together. And then Grace's family, I can't quite remember exactly what happens with that, but they're almost, I swear they're like, so her sister has a couple of children and then a husband, but the husband has like indoctrinated them into a cult or something. It's a bit weird, but I think they escape, and so that's a bit of a storyline. But then I think there is a sequel to this called The Galaxy Game, which I haven't read yet, but I really want to, and I think that follows one of Grace's like nephews. But yeah, I really want to read that, and it's just so good. It's the ultimate like cozy sci-fi again. Like it just makes you like believe in love and things again, and it's just really good. So I would really highly recommend. And just Karen Lord as an author, I think is really good, because I know she has another book called Redemption in Indigo, which I haven't read, but I've heard really good things about. So yeah, would highly recommend. Okay, then next we have Light from Uncommon Stars. So this book isn't actually out until September or October. I can't quite remember the release date. But please pre-order it, because honestly it's one of the best books I've read this year. It's just so good. So we're following kind of three main characters. So Katrina, who has been kicked out by her family for being transgender, and she is run away to San Francisco, and all she has is kind of her violin, and she's really passionate about playing music. She loves to play, but she's never kind of had any sort of official training or anything. And then there she gets kind of taken in by this character whose name I keep forgetting, but she was a very talented musical performer. Now she only teaches music to students for reasons unknown to the world, but we find out as the reader quite quickly on. And it's basically because she sold her soul to this demon, and in order to pay him back she has to give the demon 7 souls from like talented musical prodigies. So she sort of takes Katrina in with the intention of Katrina being the final like 7th soul to give to this demon. So yeah, it's kind of fun in a way, this kind of storyline. And at the same time she's training Katrina as a musical like prodigy. And I just really like the kind of elements of music. Like I'm not a hugely musical person, but I just that feeling that, and the way there were passages of text which just perfectly described and encapsulate that feeling of listening to music that's really kind of emotive, and I just felt like it was so beautifully done. And a lot of the kind of big like character moments where they have kind of realizations about themselves happen while they're playing music, and I just thought it was really beautifully done. And Katrina as a character is excellent. Like her struggles, and especially like, as someone who is kind of cis and hasn't really thought about those things, her kind of struggles as like a transgender woman is really interesting to read about, and I think important to understand that perspective. And I believe the author is trans herself, so I feel like that's quite authentic, although I can't really comment on it, but I feel it was very well done to my kind of understanding and knowledge. And yeah, just that sense of kind of belonging and found family I thought was really good. And then at the same time, this is where it gets a bit crazy, there's also this family of aliens who are kind of refugees from their system, because their system has this thing called the N plague, which we found out more about, and I think it's a really interesting concept actually. But anyway, so they've come and they're living in this donut shop, which is kind of a front because they are secretly trying to build this like portal, either to get, I can't quite remember if they're trying to get back to their system or they're trying to open a portal so more people can come and escape through to Earth. But I think they're just basically building it so they can kind of communicate with them, and at the same time trying to run this donut shop. And I just love that whole family, because there's kind of the mother-like figure, she's called Lan, and so she's probably the main character, like she's who we get the POVs from, but I also love the rest of the family, and just the storyline. And there's a lot around kind of the food, like it made me want a donut so badly after reading, but also just this sense of how food like is part of a community and how it can be like made with love, and it kind of that the secrets to baking almost. I just love that as well. And yeah, and then Lan and the musical teacher sort of strike up a bit of a relationship as well, and I love their relationship. Yeah, and it's just a great book. Like there's so many great messages and it's so well written. Oh, it just the ultimate like cozy vibes, and it'll make you hungry, it'll make you want to listen to some classical music, it'll make you just feel for the characters, and oh, it is so good, honestly. I would very much recommend. Then next we have Winter's Orbit. So this isn't quite like a cozy found family, but it's very like cozy romance type it's not even fantasy, sci-fi. It's probably a bit more political than the other books, although Best of All Possible Worlds is quite political. But yeah, so we're following two characters, Jayan and Kiem, and Kiem is basically this like prince. He's a bit of a layabout prince. I think I like him because he reminds me of Adeline. And he gets roped into this arranged marriage with Jayan, and Jayan has recently lost his husband, and Jayan's husband, who's died under mysterious circumstances, was Kiem's cousin, I think. So they need him to be married to a royal in order to like appease this treaty for this like overarching galactic force. So yeah, it's basically them being in an arranged marriage, and yeah, and it's just so cute. And Jayan is very much kind of an abused character, and just seeing him like come out of his shell and seeing how supportive Kiem is, oh, I just love them. I really need to reread it. It's so cute, and I love the sort of the whole vibes of like finding your person, and also I like how it's set in this kind of set in space, but the world is very like wintry, I think hence the name. And so there's all these like snowy landscapes, and I think that's just so cool. And it's sort of, I feel like it's the kind of feeling you get when you read like fan fiction, and just that really like fluffy sort of thing. But there is actually some really good politics in there as well. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, so would highly recommend. Okay, then a couple of fantasies. So The Black Coast by Mike Brooks. So this is one which feels like a classic fantasy, but has that kind of twist of it's not about a war, it's about peace. So it's about two kind of opposing sides trying really hard to find peace with each other, and almost finding the peace is harder than it would be if they just fought each other, which I thought was a really nice kind of message. And these two kind of different cultures trying to find that like balance and trying to understand each other's kind of customs and like their attitudes towards certain things. I thought it was really good and really interesting, and it's that kind of thing with like the like Becky Chambers style of the different peoples and different kind of species in the books, but understanding differences but still working together to try and communicate through those differences. And I just really like that element of it. And there's just, again, it's quite a chunky book, and there is a lot of plot, but there's also a lot of kind of quieter moments of just sort of characters bonding and like characters talking about their emotions, which I always love. And there's some really cute like little kind of almost side storylines, but like there's this the daughter of one of the main characters, Sana, and the daughter is called like Xana. they're very similar names, or Zana even, gets this like little baby dragon and has to like look after it and show it love, and it's just so cute, and like there's so many kind of wholesome moments which I really liked. Well, at the same time, there are some kind of pretty like ruthless badass moments that you would expect from sort of a classic fantasy. But yeah, I just really like that element of kind of trying to find the peace, and yeah, and that sort of like queer norm type world, and I just thought it was really good. Would I definitely recommend. And then finally we have Library of the Unwritten and its sequel Archive of the Forgotten by AJ Hackworth. And Archive of the Forgotten especially is such a comfort book for me. Like, oh, I just love it. And this one, they're just really like cozy, fun. It's set in like Hell's Library, which is, no, it's not. It's, yeah, so it is. So Hell has this big library, and the Library of the Unwritten is a wing of Hell's Library, essentially. And it's where all books which haven't yet been written go. And at the start of the book, a character from one of the books escapes, and the character is called Hero. And so Claire, the librarian, has to try and track Hero down and get him back to his book. But Hero is a bit of an agent of chaos. And at the same time, there's a kind of plot going on within the Library of Hell. And someone is kind of trying to take down the Library of the Unwritten. Yeah, so Claire and her assistant Brevity, they are going, oh actually, and at the same time, I always forget about Leto because he's not really in book 2, but and this little anxiety demon called Leto, he's not a demon of anxiety, he is a demon with anxiety, who is the cutest. He reminds me of like Windle in human or in demon form, but yeah, Windle from the Stormlight Archive. Yeah, so I just really love that. And so they team up and they go and track down Hero, and I love Hero as well, especially in book 2. He's just like a really lovable but also a complete twat. I don't know, I really like him. Yeah, so that's kind of that. And then there's also this angel called Ramiel, who's I don't think he's hunting them down exactly, but he keeps kind of crossing paths with them. And they're just going through various different realms and like trying to find the things, and the second one especially has such a sense of like found family, and just I love the moments with the characters and like them talking with each other and all these people from kind of very different backgrounds. And yeah, I just really love it. Would highly recommend this series as well. So that is everything. So let me know in the comments if you know of any books with kind of similar like cozy sci-fi fantasy type vibes, because I would really love to know. I always love those kind of books, and I'm always looking for more, so I'd really appreciate any recommendations or any of the books on this list that you've either read or you're interested in. I'd really love to know. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I hope you're all having a really great day, and I'll see you next time.